dinosaur party tomorrow. And then the next thing will be, I want superheroes like 10 minutes before. And you're like, okay, how about this? We just have everything out and you can play with it.
Yeah, there you go.
Because at 5, at 4 or 5, it doesn't matter as much. You just want them to remember it was a great time.
Right.
I'm already streaming, so our conversation is now going out. But this is my advice to new parents and young parents, which is it's the same as an audience. Nobody remembers what you said. They only remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what our show is going to be about today. I'm going to give a lesson in being offensive.
Okay. Okay.
Because I think people need to learn like the ABCs of being offensive so that they know how not to get offended when somebody that is intellectually, psychologically, psychosexually, whatever, below them says something awful, and they need to know how to react. Because that's what the Trump presidency is going to be about. The whole Trump election period. And it's too important. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Is Johnny with us? Is Johnny?
No, he's not here.
Oh, okay.
He's not here.
I forget.
It's next weekend.
Okay,
It's next weekend.
I lose track of my weekends these days. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right, we got a couple minutes and we're ready to go. All right.
Yes.
And hi, chat room. There we go. I'm saying hi, chat room. But sonically, it sounds good. I'm trying out a slightly new piece of gear.
No, it sounds nice.
Good. All right.
Clear.
Yay. Okay. My phone ringer on. That. There we go. Thanks, Julie. Hi, Carl. What's happening, Joseph? Hello, Tom. Who else is in here? Hey, Michael. Good morning. Hold on. I'll switch over and just say hi to you guys as we're starting up. Oh, let me, Lady B, real quick. I'm going to play a piece of audio just to see if this sounds okay coming this direction, too, if you hear it right.
It's been proven that it has been proven time and time again.
I think
she actually lied and said that she
president say something like that. And I will also say this. I will also add this. A commentator last night on CNN brought up another issue.
We have about 40 seconds.
Okay, then don't worry about it. I'll deal with it in a second. All right. I'll verbally run it through. Okay.
Come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Things are going to start happening to me now.
Live exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
Do the vibes.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I want to start right off the bat by telling you that this week's show is going to be a lesson in how to be offensive. It's going to be an incredibly important part of your repertoire. It's going to be in the modern political discourse. No tool can be more valuable to you than knowing how to be offensive and whom to offend, and how to accidentally offend someone, because that's really helpful. Now, again, I want you to know how to do these skills. I want you to know how to say something untoward, and in both on purpose, which is a lot of fun, and in a way that you think is fine, but you're aware might be problematic, but you say it anyways because it's a more effective way of getting your point across at the time. And I need you to know how to be offensive when you are using older terms than the current political discourse uses. And I need you to know how to use too new a term, be way ahead of the socio-political curve. So you're using, what would be effectively politically correct terms that offend people who aren't there yet. That's certainly possible. You don't want to lose that ability. Now, the reason I want you to have all these skills, besides me personally just being a skill vampire and liking it when people are capable of doing a lot of stuff, the biggest reason why I want you to know how to be offensive and to be offensive is because there is an element of know thy enemy that is necessary in battle, in conflict resolution, in dealing with an adversary. And one of the things that you need to know is how the other side works and how the other side thinks. Now, that is not to say that the left or progressives or liberals or Democrats or libertarian-leaning, socially open, special butterflies, individuals, and all the people on what would arguably be, quote-unquote, our side of the aisle, not to say that they can't be offensive, that they can't say offensive things, because they certainly can. And we will get into that a little bit today. But the other side is using the modern weapon of being offensive and the knee-jerk reaction towards political correctness and social justice on the left as a hammer point to win the argument before it is even stated. If you look at the political machinery that rose Donald Trump to the top of the Republican Party, which is about knee level in American political politics, by the way, no matter what the media tells you. The reality is that you yourself, if you worked your way up, whomever you are, through the ranks of the Republican Party by securing a squeak majority of that volume of human beings, using a specific ideology that sort of narrow casting, to use the modern branding terminology. If you're narrow casting your candidacy and you make it through because you win effectively 36% of everything up until the point you get about 40%, and then you claim that you have a mantle, that you have a revolution, that you are responsible for a major movement, that you are redefining politics in our age and whatnot, which is a foolish assertion, but we'll get to that as well. If you reach that point in the Republican Party, you're still on the national electorate about knee level. Now, if you came about the same on the Democratic side by going, full on, arguably Marxist, you would say, so left your right again, and you secured it through those same numbers, you would also be making the same mistake. But the important thing that I think people on the left and people in the press need to know is that the Trump success formula for both getting ahead in press coverage and in winning over certain types of voters and getting a nod, quite frankly, from voters who will, by the way, never vote for him, but in many ways look at what he says and get angry at the press reaction to some of the stuff that he says. Ultimately, what happens is you may not lose them to Donald Trump this time, but you will lose them to Paul Ryan next time if you don't recognize that everyone has some level of legitimate grievance and they may or may not be good at articulating it. And I think the good example to give to Republicans is Black Lives Matter, which I consider sort of the act up in many ways of the African American social political movement. That there is a value and an importance to disruption and being loud when you're not being heard. It will not work in every case. It will not always provide you with positive press and the victory that you would hope. You will not end every encounter with understanding being the result, which is ultimately what you're seeking. Any social justice movement, any minority-based movement, any movement that seeks to balance a long-lived wrong is ultimately seeking a form of understanding, that the other side has to get it. The other side has to look at you as human in a way that they did not before. That's always the goal. Whether you think it's laws, or you think it's a change in policing policy, or you think it's in being groups being allowed to vote, marry, what have you. Ultimately, the real part of the movement is understanding. And that might seem a little flower child, but it's real, because real movements don't take root until white parents shiver at the thought of a black child being killed by the police as if it was their own. That's when the change is true, has fully taken effect. And when you create a purely hostile environment, or people react to it with pure hostility, they never get to that understanding. Now, that's where many Trump supporters find themselves. There is a chunk of white working class people who could be reached by the Democratic Party and by liberals in many ways. They consider themselves socially liberal, and that's what's driving the hyper right-wing crazy about Donald Trump, is that they don't trust him to put a Supreme Court justice in charge that will do their bidding when it comes to religious matters. But these folks are reachable. These folks are can be brought to the table on social issues. Most of them are on a personal level, very socially and very open to LGBT issues. They're laissez-faire on gay marriage, in the same way, quite frankly, that a lot of them are laissez-faire about straight marriage anymore. If you listen to their rhetoric. And there's a couple of reasons why this came up. One of them was Trump used this week the term Pocahontas, the name Pocahontas, to ridicule Elizabeth Warren, using the idea that the myth that she used her Native American heritage, which they don't consider to be voluminous enough to gain a toehold in the academic field, essentially to get, further ahead than other people. And he called her Pocahontas this week. And the idea is, and this is where the left and in many ways the press goes wrong, and how they feed right into exactly what he's doing. Well, we got to take a break. I'll tell you the plan and how to manage yourself in the process while it happens. Because the reality of Donald Trump is not that he is this lightning in a bottle candidate that knows what the voters want to hear. The reality is that he personally is boring and derivative. But he speaks to an anger in a group of people, and he outrages a group of people that almost nobody likes. And that's how he gets ahead. And we'll talk about the answer to that and how to deal with it when we come back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT820.com, and, of course, on your radio dial. We'll be back.
just for one day. And you can be me. And I'll drink all the time. 'Cause we're lovers.
Hello, Hal.
Hi. Yeah.
Oh, another good thing I wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
I meant to tell you before.
Okay.
I'm cancer free. I was going through cancer.
Yay!
So I'm happy.
Look at you.
So, yeah.
I'm very excited that you were just like all good news this month. That's
Yes,
really nice.
yes.
That'll give you a
Very
really.
blessed.
You are gonna have a lovely summer
Yes.
with
yes.
the new baby to dote over.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So great. Did they know
Yeah.
before she was born? By the way, did they know it was gonna be a girl?
They knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was pregnant. They surprised me on my birthday because
What?
I was very depressed because
Oh.
of my, what I
Yeah.
was going through.
Sure.
And I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they surprised me on my birthday and told me. I was like, what?
Oh.
So that gave me a pick me up.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for you. That's great. I'm going to be in Chicago next month, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm going to do the show from there, so we'll all have a big hug then and stuff. It'll be great. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to tell my daughter this time because last time she was mad that I didn't tell her you was coming.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, I tend to fly by the seat of my pants with some travel. And by the way, the chat room is saying love you and congratulations and yeah.
Thank you.
So everybody's
I love them too.
yeah,
Thank you,
everybody's
thank you.
happy. That's
All
so
right.
that's so good though. I'm
Yeah.
really happy. I'm sorry you had to go through. I mean, the stress of the news of that is oftentimes worse for people than the actual dealing with it. Just hearing it the
Right.
first time is so stressful. So I'm excited for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. 20 seconds and we got 4 callers.
Of course we do. Okay, I'm gonna tee them up and then we'll go to that. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
All right. So before I went to the break, I started talking with this this reaction from the news. I think the story on crooks and liars, and this is often what you can tell in the left's media, in our presentation of stories. I feel personally that we have a more of a responsibility to be open, inclusive, and understanding than the right does. The right has never had that as part of their systemology. The right has never been about inclusion in a broader sense. Elements of conservatives have, and this is not to say that all conservatives are racist. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying is that from a political discourse and from a legal standpoint, inclusion has not been, if you look at their reaction to voters and voting laws and the concept of voter ID and such, which we'll also get into in a minute, because every time this is how it works out. Every time the Republican Party does something materially damaging to a minority or to a group of disenfranchised human beings, that like a law gets through, there is a harumphing discussion about it that does not garner the fevered response as does when Donald Trump calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, and the CNN reporter that was covering this, I'm gonna blitz on her name, but she was making the point that, and she actually said out loud, that's like someone calling a black woman Aunt Jemima, was the idea. And I do agree that doing that would be offensive to them. It's meant to be offensive. It's meant to be rude is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be racially dismissive. However, the argument coming back from the person she had on the show that was defending Donald Trump was saying, no, he's saying she's a fictional, he's using a Disney cartoon princess Native American character, which is actually based on a real person. However, that's not the way they meant it, clearly, obviously, because I don't think he knows history. So I think all the depth of his knowledge stops at a Disney cartoon, quite frankly. But the response from the right was in both the news being, saying it's offensive. He was actually called out, like she literally just simply said, that's offensive. That's offensive. And their response back was, no, it's offensive to pretend to be Native to get these benefits. Okay. Effectively, you have a draw there. Effectively, from a media standpoint, you've stalled out the argument because you're talking past each other. Calling someone who's seeing a Native American woman and calling her Pocahontas, seeing a black woman and calling her Aunt Jemima, even to a lesser extent, I suppose you could say, calling a redneck Jed Clampett over there or some nonsense like that, or, the hillbilly reference to anybody with a southern accent, I suppose you could say is in the ballpark of that. Not nearly as offensive, but in the ballpark, in the material sense. That's not what was happening here. This was Donald Trump using this as a wedge to pick on Elizabeth Warren, who was making legit shots at him about policy ideas that he thinks he has. And I say thinks he has because, quite frankly, all of Donald Trump's ideas are the result of whoever he talked to last right before he walked on stage. That's abundantly clear. Whoever's the last person to talk to Donald Trump before a decision is made or a speech is given is the person who's actually speaking. And if that means he watched a YouTube video on his phone, then YouTube is president. Random video is president when Donald Trump becomes president. So what ends up happening is, in getting offended in the abstract, as the right, by the way, hopes we will on the left. That's what they shoot for. That's what they want. They want you to get offended because to them, the act of being offended is a weakness. That you are effectively showing your weakness when you are offended. And this is part and parcel to what some would call toxic masculinity, or the idea of what manhood is, which is, abject toughness in the face of anything, and that anybody who actually is offended by something, hurt by something, emotionally affected by something, is somehow weaker. And they play on that, and that's part of the authoritarian game. That's part of why the right seeks leaders so badly, and we like presidents. We tend to, if you chart the actual use of the word, Democrats talk about our president, our president, our president. Republicans say our leader, our leader, our leader. They like that word a lot more, and it's indicative of a thought form around that. But the strong arm tactics and the sort of hyper, schoolyard bully-esque behavior of Donald Trump is viewed as in the modern political climate, is viewed as a permanent win. Even when he's wrong, even when he does say something offensive that is genuinely hurtful to human beings, it's meant to be dismissive and racist, there is a large section of the voting bloc that supports Donald Trump, and a lot of them are the younger ones too, that aren't for what he's saying. And you can hear this when you see these people being interviewed outside his events. They'll disagree with what he's saying, if you ask them on specifics. But they like the idea that he's offending people. They think it's too hard to speak nowadays freely. They think, we talked about, the idea that, Bill O'Reilly, the Bill O'Reillys of the world think that their free speech rights are being violated because they, can't use a racial slur when asking for butter in a restaurant. And it's hard to explain to those folks that this is not about the freedom to speak. This is about the freedom of other people to criticize you, which is all part of their freedom of speech. That's a bigger bulk item. But insofar as Donald Trump goes, a lot of his supporters, when you see them at these events and they interview them and doing a certain level of oppo research is part of my job here. So I have unfortunately had to watch like 6 of these meandering nonsense Trump speeches that are, somewhere between a band that's a one-hit wonder playing their same song 3 times in the same set and Sarah Palin word salad, tossed with extra dressing. You could literally, there's a point in his speeches, they've gotten shorter and shorter because they don't hold up. There used to be a phrase, James Burrows, famous comedic director of sitcoms of great merit, used to make a joke about, or create a concept around how you do a joke, how you stretch out. He called it treacle cutting. You cut the treacle, meaning you stretch out the candy, the taffy as far as you can before it starts to bow, and that's when you cut it. That you have to see how, however long it can hold the tension, you drag it out as long as possible, then you cut it. That's how you time a punchline. There's an element of that in political discourse, in political philosophy, in that you can only go with so much policy before you have to hit folks with a buzz phrase or an opposition reference, And in Trump's terms, it's all those catch points. It's all crooked Hillary, build the wall. The Mexicans are going to pay for it. We have stupid leaders. Baseline, and it's exactly the wording you would hear from somebody in his parking lot who's interviewed about what they're upset about. But the reality is, and again, I'm only concerned with the reachable ones. This is the value of this. There are those independents that are there that can be pulled away from this. And quite frankly, a lot of modern Republicans are now leaning in the direction of the Democratic Party, because I've always said that you can have a conversation from liberal to conservative entirely in the Democratic Party. But what you're hearing is that the major push of the Trump campaign is that they just like that he's offensive because society right now is currently too easily offended. Is that the case? 773-763-9278. Is our reaction becoming the weapon that's used against us in the movement towards social justice for people or the movement towards equality? Because I think it is. We'll take your calls right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the Louis Gohmert is a joy to behold. Again, part of his vote comes from the people who go, yeah, he's an idiot, but you're getting upset about the wrong thing. You know, they're literally getting to the point where they're like, he's so horrible at articulating the problem at its base. They're so bad at articulating what the Republican policies actually are, that at this point they're just airing grievance. At this point, it's not about the solution of it. It's that they're saying they're scared. They're freaking out. And some of them get violent, and some of them spout racist stuff, and some of them just, sink back into nothing. And sadly, more and more, if you look at the statistics, a lot of the good ones are killing themselves, because they're depressed about their prospects and all that, feel disenfranchised. So this is an important discussion. Yeah, Julie, I think a lot of those people won't budge because he's about not budging. That's a big part of it. His whole campaign is about not budging, even though he does all the time.
One minute.
Cool. We'll take calls when I come back. And we'll just take them in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Okay, let's take some calls and discuss the actual mechanic of the Trump campaign and what it is actually sort of secured for the Republican Party. I just want to hear what people had to say. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Steve from the Gold Coast.
Oh, right on. Hey, Steve, welcome.
Hello. Yes, thank you for taking my call. And I think you're right. And part of this, to some extent, we are feeding into. I hope that this includes part of the conversation you're hoping to have. You couldn't find someone who was more disgusted by the candidacy of Donald Trump than myself. But on the other hand, we do need to sort of come together and be on the same page if we're going to oppose Donald Trump. I know people who, for whom he is appealing on some level.
Right.
Now, I disagree with that, and I can debate with them all the time. Now, this past week, when people come out to a Trump rally to, oppose his speaking and they want to send the message that, no, he's not welcome here. I mean, even for someone such as myself, I know that politically it is a terrible move to stand out there amongst a crowd of people waving the Mexican flag without an American flag anywhere to be seen,
right,
and not conclude that that's going to send the wrong message. For somebody sitting on the fence, the best way for you to secure that person is going to come over to our side is to see a group of people who are from Mexico, who are from Central America, all waving American flags, saying to the world, we are American, we want to be American, not standing out there with a Mexican flag, which is not something that's terribly endearing to people in many parts of this country.
That's right. There was a big group of those people actually chanting Mexico in response to the USA.
Right, exactly.
And missing the entire point, which is they should have, I feel like, from my point of view, they should have been chanting USA right back at those Trump supporters.
Exactly.
Right.
T-shirts, we love America. We are Americans also. I mean, these
we pay more taxes than Donald Trump, that kind of thing. I mean, it's at a certain point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you've hit on an important point. I mean, people have talked and written about this recently. Dog whistle politics. The idea that you can use certain catchphrases without you can't say, for instance, without being called racist in this country, you can't say black people commit a lot of crime. Now, I had a caveat to that, unless you're doing a piece on Fox. But what you can use as a substitute for that is urban crime. Urban crime is a substitute for African American crime. Inner city crime is a substitute for African American crime.
Right.
So people use these sorts of things, and of course, that sets off bells in the minds of certain individuals who are going to buy into your message at that point. There are all sorts of things such as this, that people use, and this is where I think Donald Trump, I will give him credit where credit's due, because I think some really smart people managed to miss the forest for the trees with regard to his candidacy. They thought that he couldn't get elected. I was among them. I mean, rather than he couldn't get nominated, I was among them. And yet he did get nominated because he tapped into something that most of the rest of us, at least among the people I know, thought that we had sort of put behind us in this country.
Right.
That, yes, that there are still racists, that there are still bigots, that there are still people living in the 1950s in terms of their mental disposition, but that these people do not represent a significant percentage of the American population. In fact, we came to find that, guess what? They represent a larger percentage of the population than we thought, and we haven't come as far as we'd like to believe we have. And being from a place like Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, we perhaps are a little bit divorced because, I don't relate necessarily to someone who lives in Iowa or Texas or Alabama, that they could live on another planet for all that we have in common in many ways.
Right.
So,
well, that's why I've always said time travel is absolutely possible. All you have to do is get on the wrong bus somewhere in America, and you're suddenly back in 1949.
And the last point I'd like to make is, we need to hammer this, every time Donald Trump opens his mouth. If there's ever a defense of teaching epistemology in college, this is it. The notion of authoritative opinion versus opinion. Before you got on the show today, if you were in a cab or Uber or whatnot and you had a chest pain, you may have discussed it with the driver. He may have offered you an opinion. That's an opinion. The head of cardiothoracic surgery at Northwestern or USC or NYU, that person has an authoritative opinion to offer up. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to be able to make that distinction, this notion of where he gets his information. That for him, it's just, this is just as good. A YouTube video is just as good as the head of the Department of Political Science at the University of Chicago. There's no distinction there. One's an opinion, the other's an opinion. No, Mr. Trump, do you hire just anyone to design your building? Or do you perhaps seek out someone who actually has some credentials in architecture?
Well, it's even worse. It's even worse than that on the Trump side, in that, quite frankly, he hires people who are well trained and have had some experience in a job, and fires them because they start doing their job. He just fired one of his political director he had for about 6 weeks. Because that guy was supposed to move in and move him towards a general election and start coordinating all their campaigns state by state. That guy got into a fight with 3 people from, I think Florida it was. And since Trump's idea was he won Florida so handily, he knows Florida doesn't need to be told about what to do in Florida. Never mind the fact that Hillary Clinton gained way more votes than he did in her primary win. And that technically, if you took both their primary votes right now, she would have beat him in Florida, which is what this political director who ran Scott Walker's campaign was actually trying to tell him, I think. Never mind that. He just I got Florida down. I heard Florida loves me, so you're fired. I'll fire the guy with actual credentials and replace him with my attitude about myself. So, yeah. I appreciate the call, Steve. Let me grab one more call before we get to the break at least. So, who do we have, Lady B?
We have Rocco.
Hey, Rocco.
Hi, Rocco.
Rocco, are you there?
Hear me?
There you are. Hey, Rocco, go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, Rocco here.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you're talking about reaching the reachable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because what I've made an observation, actually a few months ago, about Donald Trump.
Right.
I'm not a trained psychologist or anything like that. And I really think there are some emotional issues there. And, everybody can laugh that off, and you might think I'm just calling him crazy. That's not how I mean this.
Right.
I am deadly serious about this. I was watching TV during the Republican, before he knocked everybody out.
Yeah.
And somebody reported that he didn't want to shake hands with anybody because he doesn't like to shake hands. Well, I thought to myself, this sounds like obsessive compulsive disorder.
Right.
Okay. And I went and looked it up on the internet, and indeed, Donald Trump admits he has obsessive compulsive disorder.
Huh.
Okay. Now, I've since seen pictures of him shaking hands. So the thought that goes into my head is, what medication is he on that permits him to now shake hands? Now, I try to, like I said, I'm not a trained psychologist or anything like that. But as a practicing lawyer, I've had times to interact with people and have to research these subjects in the best way I could, or talk to psychologists in that mean,
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next step that really threw me about him, and again, I don't mean this to just call somebody crazy. I mean, I want to, I want the people who can be influenced to be influenced.
Right.
This whole thing with Susana Martinez blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she scared me as a progressive Democrat.
Right.
As a progressive first, but as a progressive Democrat, she scared me because she's a Hispanic woman. She's smart,
mm-hmm.
and she's a woman, okay?
Mm-hmm.
She's got women and Hispanics on her side. And I thought, man, anybody who teams up with this lady has got it in the bag. They really are a threat to the Democrats. What did Trump do? He went there and he totally shot her down.
Yeah.
Ripped her to pieces. It was totally illogical. It made no sense.
Right.
It was stupid. And then, it crossed my mind. This guy has terrible impulse control.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't ever sleep. He admits that he never sleeps. Is he manic depressive?
Right. Well, here's the thing. I know we can't technically psychologically break down what his root cause is, but we can certainly look at the effect of his behavior. Like, you and I can't speak to whether it's medication or illness or simply a bad attitude that's responsible for his motivation and whatnot. But we can look at his actions and go, is this functionally a worthwhile candidate or not? Is this, is his ability to reach out to people or build bridges or shun genuine opponents, what have you, can you count on it? And that's really, there is one of the biggest things that is a problem with Donald Trump as a presidential candidate, beyond his ludicrous attitude and his behavior, is his total lack of reliability. You cannot, and Republicans are freaking out about this, but you cannot rely on him at any given moment to be consistent about what he's doing or saying, in his own, personal existence, much less as a ruler, as a leader, as a president, because quite frankly, he likes having that knee-jerk aspect. He does what he wants, and therefore it's almost like it's not that he has impulse control problems, because an impulse control problem, people are aware they're doing something that's not necessarily good. They just want it so bad that they kind of have to. His thing is more internal. He expresses it outwardly. The impulse is not the thing, like I like ice cream, or it's drugs or prostitution for people or whatever. Their thing is that they can't fight sex addiction, drug addiction, anything that alcohol, where they can't control their impulse. It's that he thinks he should be allowed to do whatever he wants whenever he wants. And that is the case. That's what makes him, concerning as far as having a candidate, having a president who will do the right thing in a difficult circumstance. which is what a presidency is all about. The tough part, and that's a Republican cross to bear. They got to deal with that on their own. On the Democratic side, going into this general election against Donald Trump with a legitimate candidate like Hillary Clinton, it's regardless of California, that's how it's going to shake down. She's going to get the numbers. Is that there's something inherently comes across as boring to people about doing your job when it's an administrative job like being president. There's some excitement to it, but anymore, that's not what's needed. We don't need excitement from our president, really. We need them to do that job of managing a giant country. Donald Trump's impulse control issue is not externally based. It's internal. And it's a big part of why his supporters like him, because they wish they could be that free. He is the reality show candidate. And when we come back, I'm going to explain to you why we've got it all wrong about when we watch reality shows, what we think about them. We'll be back. One of the reasons, Shaylan, by the way, that when you unpack the things about Trump's trustworthiness versus Hillary, is really fascinating in that one of the reasons people don't trust Hillary is because they feel like she's not being forthcoming with stuff she's actually doing, that she's conniving, that she is manipulative, that she has secrets. The reason they find Trump more trustworthy is because they think he's a what you see is what you get person, and that he's too dumb to have any good secrets, which is fascinating.
$30 seconds.
Cool. I'm almost an hour away from having to inflate a bouncy house. I'm so excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's going to be so excited about that.
Ridiculous. All of his preschool classes coming. It's going to be a tornado here.
Cool.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So a lot of people believe that people like reality shows because they like to look down on people. The idea is that you see these people on these shows and they're being jerks or they're being stupid in public or they're embarrassing themselves. Jersey Shore, Paris Hilton, Duck Dynasty, Honey Boo Boo, all those shows. The idea is, in theory, for a lot of people that they look at these shows and they see these people and they go, oh my God, these people are awful. I'm so glad. Look at them being stupid. At least I'm not that. And there's a certain level of prurient distance that you get in looking at these people. I would argue that the opposite is now true. If it wasn't always, it certainly I feel like it is. In that I think people watch reality shows like that and they are envious. They look at the people who are outlandish and outspoken, make complete jerks out of themselves in public, and ultimately pay no social price for it. And in doing that, that fantasy of, man, I wish I could tell somebody off in a store, or I wish I could, just be demanding and people would cater to me, or I could say something completely ridiculous and my family would still love me no matter what, that kind of stuff. That's the reaction a lot of people have to reality shows internally. They really, really do. Otherwise, it wouldn't stay on. You would just watch a few of them, then you switch to the other one. The reason that they dig in and they become fans of these shows and watch them consistently is because of a certain amount of reflected behavior. It's quite frankly what made All in the Family popular and Sanford and Son popular at the exact same time. You effectively, had on the air a black racist and a white racist getting almost equal time on national television in a sitcom. Archie Bunker and Fred Sanford hated everybody but their own kind, and they weren't even sure about them. The amazing part of those two characters is that they were very racist towards anybody that wasn't white or black, respectively, but they also had a disdain for most of their own race as stupid or ugly, or both. Most modern reality shows have replaced that format because in an effort to be offensive and get away with it from a network standpoint, because it's quite entertaining to watch someone who's offensive, writing an offensive character is too much trouble because you'll get called out on the carpet. You'll get, the show will be driven off the air for that reason. But if it's an actual person, you can defend them as free speech. So you just take a person who's like that, put them on the air. They're saying the same stuff that Archie Bunker or Fred Sanford said, and they get away with it because, well, we're just showing that's who that guy is. Dog the Bounty Hunter, off the air and back on the air again. It's way easier to do it that way. And that's because they're tiptoeing around the offense factor. And what Trump is tapping into more than anything at all, and I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I think it's just, quite frankly, it's that reality show training and the freedom to just, the producers on those kind of shows will provoke you to say the worst thing they can get you to say. They'll have meetings with the host. I've done these shows. They'll have meetings with the host. How do we get that person to finally break the wall and say women shouldn't be allowed to vote or the N-word or something? How do we get them there so that we can get, that spike of attention from someone being offensive? And the only way, by the way, to fight it is to shrug it off and say, I'd rather see something more interesting that actually benefits my life. The amount of attention people are spending on this, on Donald Trump and not spending on reading good books and learning a foreign language and finally going scuba diving or taking a trip or learning about their own heritage and traveling to the country of their origin and, all kinds of stuff. The stuff that you do as a human being to enrich yourself is largely because of the trap of the excitement of offense and offensive. Let's take another call. 773-763-9278. Who do we have, Lady B? Are we there? Do I have you guys?
Yes, I'm sorry. Damon.
Okay, good. Hey, Damon. Go ahead.
Mr. Sparks, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say hello. I used to listen to you on the Stephanie Miller Show, and I was so happy to find the WCPT screen because I'm calling from Gilbert, Arizona.
All right.
But I stream you guys all the time because I work weird hours.
Well, so do we. So we're glad to have you.
Anyways, I just wanted to, some of the stuff you just said was quite profound, but going back to Donald Trump specifically,
right?
I mean, he's an obvious, and basically you just articulated when talking about Donald Trump the symptoms of being a sociopath.
Sure.
The difference between like having like, oh, I can't control my, hey, I'm an alcoholic, or hey, I'm a drug addict, so I can't control my impulses. He's like, no, the rest of the world needs to understand that I need to be able to do what the hell I want.
That's right.
And that is not what we need in a president.
No, it is effectively the worst thing you have as the ruler of a country. Ask Iraq, ask Italy, ask
Cambodia,
current Russia to some degree. I mean, if you're just tired of a reporter and he's really sticking in your craw, don't we have some dust we can spray in his face and get rid of that guy? I mean, you become like,
I got the best dust.
That's right. We will spray the best stuff in the reporters' faces that you could ever, and they'll be gone bigly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is a certain sociopathy that is dangerous in a person to hang out with, much less run your country, make decisions for you. Yeah,
exactly. And and here's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he can get so crazy with Megyn Kelly, I mean, imagine if Putin, who is not like the best dude in the world, and him are actually, it's one thing if Putin was on, a show and Trump was on a show, and so they were talking to each other in the green room.
That's right.
But when they're actually saying, like when Putin's like, oh, Russia's going to do this, and Trump's like,
it's going to get dangerous if he ever. Yeah, we're at the bottom of the hour, but if he ever had a Khrushchev moment, we will destroy you, where somebody's banging a shoe on a table. We're in big trouble, because if Trump has the button, he'll use it. He said as much. Great call. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Whoa, we squeezed it out of the lesson.
Here at Cooper's Carnival of Clean and Classic Cars at the corner of Collins and Collins. I got a lot full of the finest little cars money can buy at the prices even you can afford. So come on down.
Well, I'm glad that one works. How do I pronounce Camden's name? Camden? Camden Harrison Sparks is his full name. Very regal. That way he can stay Camden as long as he wants to, and he could be C. Harrison Sparks as he gets older if he wants. Or he can just simply go by Harrison at some point. Harrison Sparks has a nice ring to it. Or he can stick with Cam. It's great. It's got lots of options. And I didn't want to give him the name Harry, which is, the name passed through my family because sounds like an adjective, not a name. Harry. It's like a descriptive, not quite a name. It's a bit odd. But I did want to give him the lineage, so Harrison, son of Harry. There you go. Trying to this will be easier on me. I do it this way. Put this over here. Wreck. It's just easier for me to try to get better into the habit of looking into camera, because this becomes more of a spy cam show a lot of times when I'm doing this. You have no idea how excited I am being Camden's dad. It is
1 minute.
Thank you. And I recognize the luck I have in all the factors that come into just the creation of a kid, and there are certainly challenges in our life. However, he's so smart and so charming and such the mayor of his preschool, and it's just great. He and I actually had a little cry together because we loved each other so much. That was a really nice moment. I was just literally overwhelmed by how wonderful he is, and he was like, a tear came down my face, and he reacted to it. And he was like, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "'Cause I love you so much, and you're just making me crazy happy." And then he like gave me a huge hug. It was so great. It's true.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show. We still have a bunch of callers, I think, there, Lady B. Let's grab a couple of those.
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Who do we have?
We have Anne.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great.
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead. Welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to say something about Donald Trump that I find very interesting.
Okay.
Both my parents are from Oklahoma.
All right.
And there was a term that my mom used to use. It's called brush fighting.
Okay.
And basically what that means is you kind of wait till dark, and then you throw rocks, you throw stones, you circle around back, you set a fire, and you always you do things to keep the person off guard.
Sure.
That's what Donald Trump is doing.
Right. They would call it asymmetrical warfare.
It's kind of like
yeah.
Ernest T. Bass.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He's kind of like Ernest T. Bass.
That's right. That's right. And here's the thing: there's a cleverness to that strategy that you can't dismiss. However, there is an element in the press of sort of helping him do it. That is the concerning part, because you will hear press person after press person saying, "Oh my God, he just knows what the American people want. He just knows how to play to their fears and their worries, and he's clearly a master of branding and blah blah blah." When in reality, a lot of what he does is pretty perfunctory, normal. It's not anything you wouldn't learn from reading Gary Vaynerchuk's book Crush It or any other branding book that's out there. And his messaging is simply what he has recognized, and this comes from, like I said, being on a reality show. It is being able to make say something provocative, and everybody will run the ball for you. You end up being like a quarterback of offensive ideas, and nobody ever pays any attention to the runners in this situation. The press are effectively running the ball down the field for him. He does these little shotgun passes, and they just carry it the rest of the way. So great call. Let's grab another call. Who do we have there, Lady B?
We have David from San Francisco, looks like.
Yeah, right on. Hey, David. I will be in San Francisco in July at Cobb's. Very excited to come there.
Yeah, Cobb's is a great little place.
It's awesome.
Hey, a couple of different ways I'd look at him. You remember the famous movie The Producers?
Oh, yeah. He's Bialystok.
Sure, yeah. Now think of Trump like 6 months ago. If he were to create, as you may know, he's lending money to himself. He's claiming that he's a self-funding campaign. Now, think of The Producers, where we don't know how much money he's lent to himself, what he claims that he's lent. In terms of The Producers, there was this.
He says, by the way, somewhere between $26 and $28 million. But again, it is a loan, because you can't just give it to your campaign. You do loan it, and the campaign, if he makes it, has to pay him back. So it ends up being, which he can write off aspects of as press for any other thing that he does in his taxes, by the way. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. I'll stop there, with just the Producers angle, because there's about 10 other ways that I'd look at him. But think about all the tax dodges that he could do with just that. And if he wins, he'll, if you know the Kelo decision, the one that says eminent domain can be given to developers.
Oh, yeah.
Donald Trump being a developer, for people that aren't aware of the Kelo decision, this corrupt Supreme Court made a decision about 5 years ago that said that in eminent domain could take your land and give it to the nearest developer who said that he could make more money from that land than you could.
Right.
And so if Donald Trump has control of government, he would be able to pick what mountaintop or what shoreline, what beautiful section of land of America, and use eminent domain and give it to himself or his hidden buddies. It would be a horror.
Well, that's effectively one of the big reasons why he's running, quite frankly, is knowing what America strategically is going to do throughout the world really does help you pick where to build your next hotel. That's a big part of it.
Except thinking even bigger than that.
Yeah, he can actually affect it.
Military bases and ports, and selling out the country is really what I think the third angle is. And where you were talking about the reality shows.
Yep.
I'm a big historian. Everybody says don't talk about Hitler, but Hitler pulled these master race scams, and there are a whole bunch of different master race scams. There was in history they talk about the ancient three estates. the press has been called the fourth estate, the printing press, but the ancient three estates were the king, the military, and the church.
Right.
And each of them had a different master race scam. If you didn't believe in a certain god in a certain way, you'd be executed. The military just used sheer thuggery. The economics creates all sorts of fake dodges that you have to prove in order to prove yourself in your master race scam. So the fourth estate was basically able to expose all of those, and that became its own power.
Mm-hmm.
But just to wrap it up, are you keeping up with one of Trump's managers? And this is a guy named Paul Manafort.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, Paul Manafort has managed dictators all around the world. He's been a PR guy for dictators. And, whether it's, what's his name, Seki Sezo good guy. I've got the whole list of them here. Let's see, he had...
they picked Manafort because of his Reagan ties. But yeah, there's very little difference in how that is sold. And Manafort was quoted as saying, "This is not a hard race." When he was talking about the primary stuff, he was saying this is not a hard race. He's going to win, and he said this. He believes the same thing. About beating Hillary Clinton. He's like, this is easy, because he's using effectively what you're talking about. He's using effectively the idea that people, dumb serfs all over the world are easy to manipulate emotionally, and we figure it out. We know how to do it. Let's grab another caller before we have the break, Lady B, if we could.
We have Mike from Oregon.
Cool.
Or Mick.
Oh, is it Mike or Mick? Is it Mick?
It's Mick.
Hey, Mick. Nick. Welcome. Oh, yeah. Hey, Nick.
Hi, Al. I just wanted to say, first off, you articulate the way I think better than anybody I know on the radio.
Thanks.
And I really miss that you're no longer the fill-in guy when Stephanie goes on vacation. Those were some of my favorite weeks when you were that guy.
I appreciate it.
And I really miss that.
Thank you.
And, the thing that got me to call was when you were talking about reality shows, because I was a psych major. My best friend's a psychologist, and we talk about this stuff all the time. And the one thing that this is my belief about them, because if you watch all the major ones, what it basically is teaching people, what people are seeing from it is lie, cheat, steal, backstab, anything to get ahead, anything to win. And the amount of people that watch these shows, I think it's really coarsening the way we are with each other. It's making people not trust each other. I think it's a detriment to community.
I agree.
And that was one of the main reasons that I called in. If you recall, if you've ever watched, is it okay to mention a particular one of those?
Sure.
Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Dr. Will? If you ever saw any of Big Brother?
No, that was one of the ones I specifically avoided simply out of just respect for George Orwell's, being dead. But what about Dr. Will?
Well, there was this one guy on there, and he's this good-looking guy and all this stuff, and he was really good at playing the game. Mm-hmm. And he won the first season that he played, and then they had an all-star, and he came back, and he wore this shirt that said, "Don't trust me, I'm lying to you." And throughout the whole show, he made it almost all the way to the end again, and he just did the exact same thing. I mean, one of the things that they do is they have this room that they go in, and they sit down by themselves, and they talk to the camera, which is basically talking to the audience and saying, "This is what I'm really doing. This is what I'm really thinking." And he would go in there and say, "God, I can't believe how gullible these stupid people are."
Right.
And stuff like that, and people would just suck it up and eat it up, it's really discouraging to me that these shows are so popular and that people eat that up and that they don't recognize. To me, it's the Pavlov dog thing, right? It's the bell rings, and this is how you do it, and this is how you go forward, and it's teaching people all this really horrible crap.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say it was closer almost to the 100 monkey theory, in that, once enough people do it, everybody starts doing it. And this element of, rude lying because you should be able to lie to get whatever you want, this kind of structure is unhealthy. And I, oftentimes, and if you want to talk about, what may or may not be an offensive statement, there's a lot of talk in what's called the unscripted world, because they don't call reality in the business. They call it unscripted because they don't pay writers, but it's as fictional as anything else. It is made up. It is manipulated. It is, in many times predetermined. Even your big contest shows, they'll pick the winner on day one and strategize how they're going to tell everybody's story all the way to the end. But when we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll take more of your calls, 773-763-9278, and I'll show you how, in many ways, that parallels what's going on in the Trump campaign and how you can manage your reaction to it, and in many ways, the key ways to defeat it. And one of those big ones is stop getting offended. You don't have the luxury of being offended anymore. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Am I a Trump supporter? No, of course not. EO, knock it off. Tap it down a touch, man. That's the other thing, too, is that... Hi, Van. How are you? Welcome. This is the political show, so we're not talking about entertainment-related stuff. I am an athletic supporter. That is true. I will give any lift and support I can to athletics of all sorts. I'm particularly fond of women's beach volleyball. I can't come by your house yet, but I will. I will make it there one day. I'm such a I totally am. Because here's the thing. I don't disagree that the people we're discussing, the Trumps of the world and the supporters...
30 seconds.
Thank you. Are not saying racist, sexist, homophobic, horrible things or whatever. The point is, you got to stop giving them permission to hurt you. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to do a tour of everybody's house. We're going to do shows there.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Okay, so when you have an enemy or an opponent, I will use opponent. I think that's a better term. Enemy is too strong for what's actually going on here, and quite frankly, weakens your argument. When you have an opponent whose main tool and main functional strategy is being offensive, and the press is carrying that offense for them, is allowing them, helping them to be offensive, acting as a delivery system while at the same time, pearl clutching and pretending to be freaked out while giving it more airtime than any other candidate, bar none. The only answer is you have to stop getting offended. It doesn't mean you don't react to things that are racist, sexist, homophobic. And as a matter of fact, it is better to use those terms than just say something is offensive. Offensive is now a catch-all term that is related to the concept of political correctness, and the people you are trying to affect, that you are trying to reach, the people that you are trying to say, hey, don't say stuff like that. It's damaging to people, and it's damaging to people's opinions of those people, and it affects how policy is made. Knock it off. Those people aren't going to hear you, because when they hear offensive, all they hear is, this is more politically correct nonsense. And I hope that guy keeps saying stuff these people think is offensive. That's the entire methodology of the Trump campaign. And it's 80% of its success. The other 20% is actual, genuine anti-Semites, genuine racists, genuine bigots. You have to drop the concept of offensive. It's not enough. It's a cowardly way. It's like when, when you're talking about concepts for equality for women, and trying to get equal pay and get legislation passed to make sure that women get paid the same for the same work, hours that they work, days that they work. You want that absolute parity. You want that balanced. That's all you're looking for. And the funny thing is, if the people who are against it would who say, it's because of women's life choices that they make less, it's because of a myriad of factors, well, then fine. Then the law won't affect it at all. Pass the law, let it pass, and women will still make 70 cents on the dollar because of life choices, not because they're being denied that money. Just let the law pass then. If you really believe what you're saying, that's the response, not, oh my God, he's saying women don't work as hard. They very well may be saying that, but that's not the point. That won't get anywhere. They just like you being offended. So don't get offended. Go, well, if you really believe that, then let's pass the law and the numbers will stay exactly where they are. What's the big deal? Let's pass a law that says if an employer hires a woman to do the same job as a man, she's got to pay her the same amount as she does him. As long as she does the same kind of job, she sells the same number of cars, she works the same number of hours, she'll make the same amount of money. Let's make sure there's a law in the books. And that if somebody finds out after the fact that they weren't when they thought they were, because they were supposed to, because the law says it's illegal to do otherwise, then she can sue for that back cash. Well, that's fine. Then if their theory about lifestyle, being the main factor why women make less than men, if that's true, the numbers will stay the same, and they can enjoy being right, and it won't have affected business at all. That's it. But in the process of getting offended about someone being misogynist or someone being sexist, you're not actually functionally moving the ball. You're not actually answering that. A lot of people will throw the word, especially people that who are protesting at Trump rallies and whatnot or whatever. They'll throw up the word racist and stuff. But when you say racist, you gotta bring the hammer. You gotta go, it's racist because this. It's racist because this. It's racist because this. 3 reasons and the human brain shuts down. So if you stop being offended and start arming yourself intellectually with the answers to the questions are coming, shut them down. Don't get offended. Because by the very nature of you being offended, they win. Because that's the only victory a lot of these folks are seeking. And it's the only reason they like Donald Trump. If you ask them about policies, you ask them what kind of president he would be. If you put the concepts he's put forward, including a wall between us and Mexico, if you go, well, how deep is it going to be in the earth? Because they're just going to tunnel under it, right? And because of this president's policies and what's been going on over the last 8 years, we're in a net negative in illegal immigrants. It's not only stabilized, it's gone negative. There are fewer people coming in. So what do we do with the ones that are here then? The wall's not going to deal with that, is it? Yeah, we're going to push them out and do that. Okay, that's just absurd. That's racist. These people are taxpayers who aren't getting the benefit of their taxes. You're benefiting from their taxes. You want a problem with them? Why don't you have a problem with the businesses? If you have a problem with illegal workers, let's talk about corporations that hire illegals. If you want to use that terminology. That's how you turn it on them. You can't just go, he said illegals, and therefore the conversation stops there. Because again, all they're hoping is that you freak out. In the modern, in the movement towards social justice, you are going to come up against people who are horrid human beings, who believe terrible things. But understand this, they are a minority in even their community. The loud ones in those groups don't even speak fully for the groups they hang out in. Those are the people who embarrass the people who are an embarrassment in their own community. And so but they get a win whenever you're offended by them. It's like a checkpoint, and they get this, like they tick a box. I freaked him out. He's yelling racist at me. He's yelling sexist at me. He's yelling, they're calling me this. I must be winning. And that is the central point of Donald Trump. The reality about Donald Trump, he has no policies, but the last thing that was said to him right before he walked on stage. He has no policies, but what he's told by whomever he hires this week, who he will fire next week if he parrots back what they said to him and he didn't understand it and they correct him and he doesn't like it. He'll fire them. He will, and that's the candidate Trump. There's a difference between the candidate Trump and the candidacy of Trump. What most people, when they say they're supporting, what most people say they're supporting is the Trump candidacy in many ways. What they get freaked out, about and supportive of his ability to be offensive and to, say scary things, because these people feel these things and they can't articulate them out loud because they'll be ostracized in their community because the community has moved on without them. And they're looking around and at this diner counter where they used to be able to whine about Mexicans, they can no longer do that. And here comes this guy who can say it, and they know what he's saying isn't correct. And a lot of times, if there was a car turned over and there was a Hispanic person in it, they would endanger themselves dragging that person out of that car. That human being, who's probably a Trump candidacy supporter, would do that. And like I said, even if you think they're wrong and they're and they deserve to be called out for their lack of details, you have a responsibility to have those details at the fore all the time when you do it, and you have to manage your offense. We'll be back with more of your calls, and more of your calls, 773-763-9278. How to win friends and offend people today on the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT 820. Yeah, it's, one of the things that people get offended by is when, when people on the left who didn't want to go into the Iraq War were called un-American. And in the process of, of being offended by that, but not wanting to align themselves with patriotism because patriotism became a bad word, we basically handed the flag over to become effectively a new Confederate flag. that there was very little difference for a window of about 9 years, where that wearing the American flag was almost the same as wearing the Confederate flag as far as what it represented and what kind of Southern patriotism. And it's not. And again, it's kind of what we brought up before. If you're going to chant, if the Trump supporters are going to chant USA, the dreamers and the people who are, have come here and have lived here, were brought here by their parents or have lived here for decades and want to be citizens because they effectively are the undocumented Americans that they are, you chant USA back at the Trump supporters, not Mexico. Because again, you're just doing the same thing they're doing. You're just being provocative and hateful. Yeah, Skinny, I don't doubt that there are people who believe that those flags are equal in value, because they're both historic and represent something America is no longer to them. I think, Billy, you mean, yeah.
We still have 5 callers.
Great.
Ike, Matt, Carl, Kathleen, and Donald.
Awesome.
Okay.
We'll go we'll go in that order, and we'll kind of chew through them as fast as we can. It's good.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks. That's right, Julie. But Billy, I think what you meant is the Confederate flag is the American flag where you are. I think you're right. Mm-hmm. And the reason it went from a sign of patriotism to nationalism is because we let it. What we've allowed to happen to the flag in many ways is the same thing that is not voting in midterms. Nice.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. I'm going to let our callers head. We got 5 callers on the line. I want to make sure everybody gets through. So everybody keep it relatively high and tight, but I want everybody to have their say, because this is an important, how you speak is as important as what you say these days in many ways. So let's let the people speak. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Ike.
Speak of the...
hey, Al, how are you doing, buddy?
Speak of the angel. How are you, Ike? Go ahead.
Yeah, let me play devil's advocate here. A large base of the Trump voters are trying to get an issue dealt with that a large part of the Democratic voters have been trying to get dealt with. And that is the wage inequality, and the Bernie supporters, in particular.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Wall Street was allowed to do what they did. The Obama Justice Department didn't frog march not hardly a one of them to jail, which, was a dereliction of duty in a lot of people's opinions. We've continued to see the wages stagnant, and they're not really getting up, and, we're not getting anywhere. And we haven't been for a long time. Now, I'm not laying it all at the feet of the Obama administration or either party, because they've both been ineffectual. But the problem that we have created here is that, and it's just flat out, the working class has had it with everybody. We're done with them. Okay, whether it's Wall Street or whether it's the president administration or whether it's whoever, we don't care. What we know is things have gone up. Since the year 2000, we've lost 34% when it comes to our buying power because our wages are not going up. And unless you're willing to address the crappy trade deals that were made, and no, I'm not laying that at the feet of Bill Clinton, because I've heard that forever when it was originally started under Ronald Reagan, and it was signed by George H.W. Bush. You know, I know how all this took place. I'm not an idiot, you know, which, by the way, continue to beat on Southerners like that, and they'll just go that much further off the reservation to the point that you do risk them going to Trump's arms.
Right. That's kind of,
you know,
that's the point I'm making.
Do to Southern people.
Right.
Right. That's one thing you don't do to Southern people, is sit there and just abuse them and make them out to be, oh, you're just a bunch of redneck hillbillies that don't know any better, when people that have been around the world and people that have traveled throughout this country, I've met as many up north as I've met down here. But you know what? Here's the point. You can say whatever you want about immigration. Okay, I wouldn't care if they were coming from Ireland. I wouldn't care if they were coming from England. I wouldn't care what color they are. That's not the issue. And every time it's brought up as a problem for labor in this country that continues to stagnate our wages and being used by the rich man, you know, basically being used as a blunt instrument against the poor people in this country, okay, to keep wages down and keep things stagnant, you know, you're just ignoring the problem. And that's what the Democrats have been doing. We're not going to have a kumbaya moment here. That ain't going to happen. And unless the Democrats find a way to answer this and be realistic about it, because we all know how to stop it. Everybody knows how to stop it. It's called E-Verify. It's called Secure ID, which is a law that got passed to where, by God, you get E-Verified when you go buy a car. You get E-Verified when you go rent an apartment. You get E-Verified when you buy insurance, etc. Once you identify these folks, then you don't give them a free ride. You find a pathway to citizenship. You get the criminals and you get them out of here. You show some kind of progress. But, you know, we're never going to get anywhere unless
the fascinating part is insofar as E-Verify and making it a national program, and really making it robust so that it works everywhere, is one of the things that Republicans are fighting from comprehensive immigration reform. It's always a part of that. And that's their big holdup, but they won't say it. They'll just kind of avoid the entire bill and act like the issue is citizenship for the people who are already here, and play to the racist meme of a certain group of largely Texas voters for some reason. That's one of the biggest ones. However, I think there is a kumbaya moment that is possible about verifying through corporations, about making corporations that hire people who do not have a proper work visa, who are not here, for that purpose, and have no, migratory worker status, pay for that. That it costs them something, because it costs the American people, and they can't just, make us absorb all the aspects of that. That is, it's as effective as any other aspect of business that they're doing illegally. It fits right in with that game. That's a big part of it. And I think he's absolutely right. And that's kind of the overall point, by the way, that I was making. Thanks, Ike, for the call. That don't just dismiss a lot of these angry people outside of Trump rallies who are reacting again to the candidacy more than the person, because not all of them are unreachable or stupid. They're just at their wits' end, and the dismissal of people at their wits' end is cruel. And the unfortunate weight of being a progressive or a liberal or a Democrat is that you have to shoulder more of that burden. As Randy Rhoads likes to say, you have to vote for their best interests even if they won't. You have to have their best interests at heart, even in that sense. So let's take another caller. Who do we have there, Lady B?
We have Matt from Chicago.
Cool. Hey, Matt, go ahead.
Hey, Chicago Matt calling, L.A. Hal.
All right.
So two things. One, let's go funny first and say that in honor of the opening to your show, I really wish to God that Roddy Piper was still alive so he could eye rake and then sleeper hold Donald Trump.
Right. And Trump, by the way, after Trump loses the presidential, which he will, we will see him at a wrestling match. We saw, why not? We saw Jon Stewart do it after he left The Daily Show. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, he already had a surrogate space, Vince McMahon surrogate, to cut off Vince McMahon's hair a couple years ago.
That's right.
But That's just my nerdism coming in. Let's talk serious.
Yeah.
There was, I'm not really too sure what happened exactly with the DePaul University thing, but apparently within the past 48, 72 hours, there was a conservative gay man who came onto campus and was giving a talk, a lecture, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And he was saying some, well, let's call it not exactly par for the course things, but they were still his beliefs. And
you're talking about, by the way, you're talking about Milo Yiannopoulos. He's a Breitbart tech editor. He's gay, and he lectures against, largely his two big points are feminism and Black Lives Matter. His since he's gay, he calls his tour the dangerous F word, as you were. I won't say it on the air, but tour. So that's who you're referring to. But go ahead.
Yes,
yeah.
And there was a bunch of Black Lives Matter folks there, and a large group of feminists, and they basically assaulted him verbally and derogatorily and chased him off stage. And it was, for lack of a better word, there was a little riot going on in honor of the Sly and Family Stone over at DePaul. And they, since then, if you look at their Facebook page, their approval rating has gone down to 1%. There's been a few professors, tenured professors as well, who have elected to leave the university after 15 years or so, saying, I don't want to be a part of this racist culture. And this is how they're winning folks.
Yep.
Because every single person in this country has a right to free speech. It may be the dumbest free speech you'll ever hear, and it may offend you to your very core. But like it or not, these people have a stance to say it. Now, that doesn't mean I agree with him. I think what he says is horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Trump says is horrendous.
Right.
But by having these protests, it's okay to protest. That's fine. But getting violent, breaking police cars in, making sure that Trump can't get out or that Milo gets literally thrown off of campus physically, this is not solving anything. And they're winning because they're just saying, oh, look at these crazy left-wing liberals. They're doing all this because we're Republicans.
Well, it's even further than that. They are arguing that that we are anti-free speech. They are arguing that the left is against free speech. And there are elements of campus radicals on both sides for going back for decades that are, of course, against free speech. From hosing down people, and sicking dogs on them during the civil rights movement to, effectively the PMRCing of the modern left movement, meaning that anybody who speaks in a way that you find offensive can be branded as hate speech, and there's, you need trigger warnings and safe spaces and all that kind of stuff. There are no heroes in this world, male or female, that we revere as incredible human beings, from Rosa Parks, to abolitionists, to anybody in the suffrage, Susan B. Anthony. None of them grew up in safe spaces. None of them grew up in areas where they were not confronted by what we would consider horrific behavior, language, vilification, and that kind of stuff. So trying to create an area where it doesn't exist in an attempt to make yourself right all the time is just as wrong as Fox News. And I do disagree with Black Lives Matter and the feminist groups that shut down the Yiannopoulos lecture at DePaul. I think it was violent and untoward, and unfortunately, its biggest ramification is that it solidifies their message. It makes them seem more right than they are, and that can't be the goal. You can go up there and make a stand, You can interrupt the thing, but then walk out. Let them finish. But the important thing is, it's better to sit there and listen to what they're saying and take notes and put on your own lecture and break down what they're doing, because you absolutely can, than to just simply stop theirs from happening. Because it gives them two wins. One is it allows them the illusion. We're going to have to take a break. And when we come back, we'll finish with our callers. That'll be our happy ending, because the caller's been so awesome today. And I think we have Carl from Nashville waiting and a couple others. So hang in there, guys. When you stop someone from speaking and saying things that you think are offensive, what you do is twofold. One is you allow them the mythology of saying, well, I was going to say a bunch of stuff that was factually correct, and they won't let me. They shut me down because I'm right. And because you didn't let them speak, you can't prove a negative. So you have to. They can say that they're at the effect of an anti-free speech movement, and they are, in all technical circumstances, correct. And they get the mythology that, and what I was gonna say is true, and therefore that's why they didn't want me to say it. Instead of letting them say it and going, this was untrue, this is untrue, this is untrue, this is biased, this is untrue, this is a confirmation bias, this is from an attitude that they had, this is untrue. And going to them, which is the worst thing you can do to them, going, this part they're right about, I have a problem with it as well. It's something we share, and we can both do something about it. That's the weapon. That's the real strength. And it's the most difficult one to wield or use. It is the most difficult tool to use, is sharing something with your opponent and going, this is something we agree on. We need to fix this. We'll be back. More of your calls, 773-763-9278. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Thanks for watching on the YouTube channel as well. Like and subscribe us there. Really appreciate you guys and the support you give us every week in the chat room. Just can't thank you enough. We'll be back.
Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my...
Well, there's let's see, Skinny D. That's the what I would call the Bill O'Reilly effect. Is that he claims that when you call him a jerk for when you call him a jerk for saying something awful. That was yay was for Julie. Thank you, Julie. When you called Bill O'Reilly a jerk for saying something awful, he thinks his freedom of speech is being violated. He thinks that, that he's not allowed to speak his mind because he's being criticized. There's a difference between not being able to speak. There are two ways you can deny someone their right at free speech. One is the government comes in and says, you can't say that, which is clearly illegal based on one of the most root elements of the Constitution. The other one is by bullying them, is by stopping them from actually saying it, by interrupting them and destroying their what do you mean? What I was saying now? That's why I appreciate Fox News 90% of AM Talk Radio. I don't know what you mean, Skinny D, but okay. But by stopping them from doing it, by bullying effectively, even if you're right, stopping someone from speaking their mind, especially if they're a paid speaker someplace or what have you. It's coming, Jude. I'm sorry. Everything's in storage. I apologize. We're moving. I'll get there. Don't worry. Stopping somebody from giving a lecture they've been paid to give by people who paid to hear it is censorship.
30 seconds.
And I think it's better you let them speak and make their mistakes or have an alternate lecture. I think Black Lives Matter staging a lecture the same night would have been great. Oh, I see.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our callers because we got so many wonderful ones. Who do we have, Lady B? Let's get through them so everybody gets a chance.
We have Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen. Go ahead. Kathleen, there you are. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Hal. Anyway, I was just thinking, I wonder if Donald Trump has any idea of the mundane tasks a president has to perform every day. I think that
he's apparently going to shelve them off on his VP choice, according to Manafort. That's true.
Yeah.
He actually said he's going.
I don't believe that in his business dealings he really makes a lot of the boring, tenacious decisions.
Not at all.
I think he passes everything off to everybody.
All sales. He's it's like a car dealership. He's the guy who bugs you when you're walking around the lot, but he's not the guy who drafts the paperwork for the loan and walks you through the whole process.
Like a Camaro gal. Come here.
That's right. That's all it is. It's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that he would choose to live in the White House. I mean, he's not going to win, but if he did, I can't imagine him living in the White House. I imagine he'd walk in and go, what is this small dump? I got to get out of here.
Right, yeah.
Because you don't have to live in the White House, so.
Yeah, technically speaking, that's right.
President from Florida.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's effectively like George Bush's.
I always do all my major kitchen cleaning for Saturdays at 11 because I can stay by the radio.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I will. I carry this mantle very proudly, and I'm glad to do the show. And I love CPT for giving me the opportunity to do it because I view it as as quite frankly my civil volunteer work. It matters.
Well, and we love it. And on top of how smart you are, you're just so funny.
Oh, well, I do my best. Sometimes I can't be because I'm so irritated. But I'm getting back into the zone of it. I think we're now moving into the humor phase of the entire thing, so I can even be funnier about it. And I think the conversation about being offensive or offending people is a valuable one. And I think the left, we need to build up our muscles and thicken our skin in dealing with what is offensive because it's coming. It's coming. You know what I mean? It's on its way. All right, let's grab another caller. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Lady B.
We have Donald.
Oh, hey, Donald. How are you?
Yes, hi, Hal. How you doing?
Good.
I was listening to what you were saying about Donald Trump. Now he wants to go after, he's not even a president. He wants to go and start bombing Libya. It's about time they start bringing up that draft note about his draft record. I remember one time I was watching him on CNN. He was being questioned about it. He was literally squirming in his chair, trying to be as evasive as he can to answer these questions about being drafted. He had a note about it was a health summary from his doctor written in December 4th in 2015. I'll just read the last part of it. If elected, Mr. Trump, I could state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency.
Right.
Can you imagine a doctor writing that? Well, let me tell you something. I got drafted in 1966 in October of that year. His was in November. He immediately got a hold of somebody to get him a student deferment. He got even he even ended up with a 1Y, with a bone spur to get him so he wouldn't get drafted when his 1A when he went back to being a 1A again. And the bone spur, while he indicated that was affecting him staying out of the military, he was playing football. He's playing baseball and everything else. And then toward the end, he actually managed to get the covenant 4F, which means you are not qualified for military service. You are unfit for it. Yet he comes off and saying that he is the most healthiest candidate there ever was.
Yeah, I think it was Dr. John Miller. I think Trump wrote his own note as his own doctor. The PR flap where he was pretending to be his own PR person, John Miller. I think that we need to check that doctor's note to make sure it's not Dr. John Miller, PhD, Esquire.
You're probably right.
He wrote it himself. Write down that I'm the healthiest person that's ever lived, that could ever, and that I could lift the White House if I put that in there. And
not only after 2, he came a 4F, and there's no record why he was 4F. When you're 4F, you got to be in bad shape. Back then, you were not fit for military service.
That's right.
But yet he's going to run as the president of the United States and call himself the fittest person that ever ran for office.
One of those.
This is ridiculous.
Well, one of those
and Hillary
Fs.
Clinton better start jumping on his case.
She will. They're waiting. They're waiting till after the convention because they can let it all slide because they really want effectively a lot of October surprise in his stuff. They're going to hit him so hard in September and October with just like lame-o thing after lame-o thing, one after the other. The other thing, though, is one of those Fs in the 4F that he got was financially too well off to be in the war. That's really what that was about. Appreciate the call. Let me grab another one. I think we have Carl. Is Carl on there? Yeah?
No, he does.
Oh, we
he's
lost
not here. He's
oh,
gone.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry. Okay, do we have another caller? Are we good?
No, that's it.
Oh, well, then I was sorry. I would have let him go a little longer. My apologies. I thought I was squeezing in 3. The the important thing is, and this is a big part of our happy ending this week. Let me have a moment with our listeners, with our YouTube viewers, with our Twitterers, with our all the people who want to be a part of a progressive movement towards more a more equal society, a more supportive society, a more loving society, which is lest we forget the goal of this whole thing, is as Americans in our voting process supporting all Americans in their ability to be the best they can be. Give everybody, as much resources. It's not a kid's fault that they're born poor or their parents are losers. It's not their fault, but they are Americans and they deserve every opportunity that this country can give them. And that's what we as Democrats are for. This idea that we're all created equal, we take that to heart. And so when you're having these conversations with the Trump supporters, or you're seeing this, flurry of things online, or you're watching all these news stories about the garbage that Donald Trump says, the first thing you need to do is not get offended. You need to stop getting offended. You need to drop that reaction because it takes away your skill. It weakens your response time. It's the difference between somebody who is ready for a threat versus somebody who's never been in a haunted house before. You spend too much time being scared. It's not helpful. If you really want the goals that you're seeking, being offended is not valuable. The other thing is shutting anybody down or getting somebody fired for what they say is not functional. It's not valuable. It doesn't help the cause in the long term. They will be paired out over time by good argument and response. And that's what we're here for every Saturday. You're listening to the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We will see you next week with 100% more Johnny Million next week. Thank you, everybody in the chat room. Thank you, Lady B. We're so happy about your good news. You're just it's so great to have you back with us and smiling. Have a great week, everybody. Stay focused and don't get offended. We'll be back next week. Thank you, guys. This is such an important part of this process. To remember this. So I want to thank you guys for joining in today in the chat room, being part of this. Really, just great.
Happy birthday to Camden.
Yeah, thank you. It's going to be so fun. He's already running around. He's in a Black Panther costume from the Avengers because that was his favorite one in the ad. He's not old enough to see the movie because it's just too much.
Right.
But he's running around in his Black Panther costume, and it's awesome because he's the blondest, whitest kid in the world. It's so funny, but it's great. It's great. Anyways, you're awesome, Lady B. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next week. Have a great week. Keep smiling.
You too.
Okay, talk to you later. I'm signing off. Okay. There, I disconnect from Chicago so you guys don't get the big thing. So, yeah, I think Camden's actually dressing for the party right now, and I've got to run out. And, yeah, we're going to take the cat with us. I do have to bounce because I literally have to go inflate a bouncy house. So, but you guys are great. Thank you again for joining in. Just really nice conversation today, and we're gonna be talking more about this stuff as it goes on. And I also am gonna try and build this hashtag Humpty Trumpty about how delicate he is and his silly wall. And I think Humpty Trumpty has got to be a part of the lexicon this summer. So I'm just gonna keep piling on there. Yeah, and if you can donate, even a couple of bucks, it keeps us in all the number of jacks I have to travel with when I'm going in. And since I do the show for free, I get screamed at because I spend too much on it. But there you go. Yeah, if you want to donate, everything's helpful, and it helps me do more YouTube shows and all that stuff. And I thank you guys. Even if you can't, I'm just glad you're here. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Hold on. Signing off properly. This is good. Cheers.